Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine having a kind of internal radar, maybe like a superpower, that lets you understand not just the world, but the really complex stuff inside yourself.
Hmm.
We're diving deep today into that very idea, something that honestly it really stood out across the stack of fascinating source material we looked at, self-awareness.
Yeah, it might sound like just another buzzword maybe or something you think you already have a handle on.
Right.
But the material we reviewed, it makes a really compelling case that truly understanding what's going on beneath the surface,
Hmm.
under your everyday thoughts and reactions, that's anything but trivial. It's like foundational. And the sources explore both what it is and, crucially, practical ways to actually build more of it.
Exactly. So our mission, our goal in this deep dive is to get genuinely curious about this whole thing.
Okay?
We want to figure out what self-awareness really means, understand why it's such a powerful tool for navigating life.
Yeah.
Draw a really clear line between it and that other thing, that often uncomfortable feeling of self-consciousness.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
And most importantly, pull out some actionable insights from the material on how you, listening right now, can actually cultivate your own self-awareness, starting today.
One analogy that really jumped out from the sources is thinking about your life like driving a car.
Okay.
You've been behind the wheel, right?
Right.
Navigating roads, dealing with traffic, maybe for years, decades even.
Sure.
But self-awareness, that's like finally deciding, okay, I'm going to pop the hood and actually look at the engine.
Oh, okay.
What are the moving parts here? What's actually making this whole thing go?
That car analogy is, yeah, that's perfect because it captures that sense of getting curious about your own internal mechanics, right?
Exactly.
So at its core, self-awareness, based on what we read, it's the recognition and, well, the understanding of your own inner landscape, your emotions, motivations, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, all that stuff. It's about developing a clearer perception of you.
And that clear perception, it isn't just, scratching the surface. The sources really highlight that it includes pretty much everything.
Like what?
Like your core personality traits, your inherent strengths, your weaknesses too, your deeper desires, your fears, aspirations.
Yeah.
It even involves understanding the lasting impact of significant past experiences. Things like your relationships with your parents, siblings, maybe past traumas. It's looking at the whole system, the whole engine.
Here's where it got really interesting, I thought, across the material. It's not presented as this like static thing. It's not just knowing your own history, like what happened to make you who you are based on the past.
No, the emphasis is much more on learning yourself. Right now in the present moment. It's framed as this continuous journey, a journey of self-discovery, always evolving.
What's fascinating, too, is how this internal understanding, it just naturally seems to ripple outward.
How so?
Well, as you start to see yourself more clearly, you inevitably become more aware of others and maybe critically how you might be perceived by them and how your own internal state, your mood or whatever, influences your interactions and actually affects the people around you.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You start seeing the connections.
So why bother with all this, introspection? Popping the hood, like you said, can definitely feel a bit daunting sometimes.
Yeah, it can. But the material lays out some really compelling reasons why this effort is, well, really worthwhile.
Okay, like what?
Well, one major benefit highlighted is simply making better decisions.
How does that work?
Well, when you understand your underlying motivations or maybe potential biases or just your emotional state in a given moment,
Right.
you're just better equipped to make choices that are more aligned with your actual goals and values rather than just, reacting on impulse.
Okay, that makes sense. And that ties directly into improved emotional regulation, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
If you can recognize an emotion as it starts to sort of bubble up and you understand why it's happening, maybe what triggered it, you just have so much more agency, more control in managing it constructively instead of feeling completely, swept away by it.
Right, not getting hijacked by your feelings.
Precisely. And as we just touched on, this awareness of your internal state and how it impacts others, that translates directly into more fulfilling relationships.
Because you understand your side of the equation better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Understanding how your mood or your reactions affect other people allows for, well, Healthier communication, better connection, just smoother sailing, really.
And personally, I think it gives you this incredible sense of agency over your own life.
Agency, yeah. How so?
Well, it empowers you to identify what parts of yourself you genuinely appreciate and maybe want to nurture, what you might want to consciously work on or change.
Mm,
And maybe even aspects you decide, you know what, this just doesn't serve me anymore. And you can choose to release them.
yeah, that's powerful. And this naturally brings us to a point of distinction that several sources address because it's a really common area of confusion.
Okay.
The difference between self-awareness and self-consciousness.
Ah, right. They sound similar.
They do, but they come from fundamentally different places according to the material.
Okay, explain that. How is self-consciousness different?
Right. Self-consciousness, as described, is distinct because it's often an excessive focus on yourself,
Uh-huh.
almost acute.
Hmm.
And crucially, it's heavily centered on how other people perceive you.
Okay, so it's outward looking in a way, even though it's about the self.
Exactly. Now, look, a healthy amount of awareness of how you appear to others, that's necessary, of course.
Sure.
It's the social glue, right? It
Okay.
helps you, not wear your pajamas to a board meeting or something. That's just appropriate awareness of social context.
Right. But the sources really emphasize the kind of debilitating nature of excessive self-consciousness.
Yeah, that's where it gets problematic. This is where you consistently feel uncomfortable, uneasy, maybe embarrassed or awkward in social situations, always feeling like you're under a spotlight.
Ugh. Yeah.
And it's often accompanied by intense self-judgment, guilt, shame.
Mm-hmm.
The material uses examples of that internal voice, saying things like, damn it, I thought I was past this. Or, what the hell is wrong with me that I reacted that way?
Oh, I recognize that voice. And there's that constant loop too, right? Worrying about what others are thinking.
Constantly. Do I look like an idiot?
Yeah.
Did she take that the wrong way? Did I say the wrong thing again?
No.
It's just mentally exhausting.
Totally.
And it absolutely can fuel social anxiety. And paradoxically, it can actually prevent you from showing up as your genuine, authentic self because you're so busy trying to manage how others might be judging you.
Right. You're performing instead of being.
Exactly. So the core point here is really clear. Self-awareness should lead to understanding and growth, not self-judgment or shaming. That's the fine line. And too much self-consciousness means you've definitely crossed it.
Okay, so if self-awareness is the goal, getting that clear, objective view in your internal mirror, how do the sources suggest we actually, develop the ability to look into that mirror without getting bogged down in all that judgment?
Well, across the material, the emphasis is really on engaging in reflective practice.
Reflective practice.
Yeah, these are essentially like structured ways to practice looking inward, asking yourself, okay, why did I just react that way? Or what was the thought behind that feeling? Approaching yourself with that same curiosity you mentioned, like popping the car hood. What's going on in here?
Okay. And the sources dive into several methods for this, right? One, which you might already be familiar with, is journaling.
Right. Journaling came up a lot.
Yeah.
And as discussed, it's not just keeping a diary of, like, here's what I did today. No, it's positioned as a tool for writing down your thoughts, experiences, and feelings, specifically to bring clarity to them, to understand them better.
And there was one perspective offered on why actually putting pen to paper is so powerful, wasn't there? Something about the conscious versus subconscious mind.
Yeah, exactly. It touches on the complexity of our minds. Only a tiny fraction, maybe 5%, is conscious thought that we're actively aware of.
Wow, only 5%,
Yeah.
roughly.
A massive 95% is operating below the surface. That's all your subconscious programming,
Yeah.
shaped by everything that's ever happened to you.
Okay.
And journaling helps externalize some of that hidden programming, bring it up to the surface where you can look at it.
It's like that math problem analogy they used.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Well, something simple like 2 plus 2, you can do that in your head, no problem.
Right.
But if you're trying to figure out, 374 multiplied by 17,614.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah.
Most of us need to write that down, right? To see all the parts and work through it step by step.
Got it.
Well, our internal landscape, our thoughts, feelings, motivations, it's infinitely more complex than even a tricky math problem. So writing it out on paper gives you the space to actually see your thoughts and feelings, connect the dots, and understand yourself in a way that's just much harder when it's all just swirling around in your head.
Okay. So the recommended journaling process isn't just like listing events.
No, it's about asking those deeper questions. Instead of woke up, had coffee, went to work, it's more like, man, I'm feeling really frustrated today. Why am I so frustrated?
And then pushing yourself on paper to explore the answers.
Exactly. Okay, I'm frustrated because this thing happened at work. Followed by, okay, but why does that specific thing trigger such a strong reaction in me? Going deeper.
And a powerful outcome noted in the material is that people who commit to this kind of reflective journaling, they often have this big aha moment
Yeah.
where they realize, wow, I knew myself far less intimately than I thought before I started doing this. It's like uncovering that hidden 95%.
That makes sense. Okay, so journaling is one tool. What else?
Another reflective practice highlighted is meditating.
Ah, meditation, which can seem intimidating to some people.
It can, yeah. And the material is careful to point out this isn't necessarily about trying to stop your thoughts, which is a common misconception.
Right, like achieving some perfectly blank mind state.
Exactly. One insight shared, attributed to a monk, is that meditation is really about watching your thoughts, not resisting them, not judging them, just observing them pass by.
Okay, like watching clouds drift across the sky.
Kinda, yeah. It's about simply observing your normal state of mind without getting carried away by every single thought or feeling or judging yourself for having them.
And the implication there is interesting. If your mind is racing during meditation.
Then that's probably how it is most of the time, but you're usually just too busy or distracted to notice it.
Ah.
Sitting still, meditating, it just shines a light on that baseline state, what's normally going on in there.
So it helps you become more attuned to your internal states, the constant flow of thoughts, feelings, physical sensations.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a sense of curious observation,
Yeah.
becoming like an Indiana Jones or an explorer of your own inner world, as one source put it quite vividly.
I like that, exploring your own mind. Okay, so beyond these structured practices like journaling and meditation, the material also suggests just building more awareness into your everyday life, right?
Definitely. A key area is simply paying more attention to your thoughts.
Why thought specifically?
Well, it's often the case that our feelings stem directly from our thoughts. You think something, then you feel something as a result.
Okay.
So the material points to a core question, one used in approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically asking yourself, what was I just thinking?
When?
When you notice you're feeling a particular way, maybe suddenly anxious or angry or sad, pause and trace it back. What thought preceded this feeling?
Okay, interesting. And paying attention to what triggers you is presented as really valuable too, almost like a gift.
Yeah, that phrasing stood out. The idea is that sometimes a trigger shows up, maybe it's another person, maybe it's a situation almost specifically to highlight where you are not yet free or healed within yourself.
So the trigger isn't just about the external thing, it's revealing something internal.
That's the suggestion. The sources propose that often these intense triggers point to something within ourselves that we dislike or haven't accepted or need to work on, and the other person or situation is just acting as a kind of mirror.
Wow, okay. That shifts the focus completely.
It does. The fundamental principle here seems to be that if you're waiting for the world or other people to change for you to feel better, you're probably starting in the wrong place.
Right. The transformation has to begin within.
Exactly.
So the next time you feel that intense triggered reaction, the idea is to pause and ask, okay, what was the thought I had right before or during that?
And similarly, pay attention to your feelings themselves.
Just notice them.
Yeah, and ask simply, why am I feeling this way? The material suggests maybe allowing yourself to just feel the emotion first without immediately trying to analyze it or push it away.
Okay, just sit with it for a moment.
Yeah, and then reflect on the circumstance that might have triggered it.
It connects this to a really basic view of human experience they mentioned.
Yeah.
Something like, you're born, you have sensory experiences through your life, and how you interpret those experiences is where your feelings and reactions come from.
Ah, right. The meaning you assign to events.
Exactly. So paying attention to those interpretations and the feelings they generate is central to self-awareness.
And it also helps you notice patterns over time, right?
Definitely. Like maybe you notice you always feel irritable when you haven't had enough sleep.
Or certain interactions predictably make you feel insecure. You start seeing those connections.
Okay, so thoughts, feelings, what else? There's a big one about beliefs.
Oh, yeah, challenging your beliefs.
Yeah.
That was presented as a really powerful pathway.
So first, understanding where beliefs come from.
Right. Our beliefs are this complex tapestry, aren't they?
Yeah.
Woven from our upbringing, our life experiences, maybe past traumas, societal norms, stuff we absorbed from family, community, religion, culture, nationality, everything.
They form our worldview.
They do. But as the material points out, they can also be incredibly limiting.
Yeah.
like invisible fences around our potential, keeping us stuck in certain patterns.
So the process isn't just accepting them, it's actively challenging them.
Exactly. The idea is to first identify what some of those core beliefs actually are, the fundamental assumptions you operate on,
Okay.
and then deliberately challenge them. Ask yourself, is this a belief I genuinely and consciously choose to hold now? Or is it something that was just kind of programmed into me from my environment way back when?
And there were three crucial questions suggested to guide this process for any belief you examine.
Yes, let's go through them. What were they?
Okay, first, where did I learn this belief? Like, who taught it to me, or where did I pick it up?
Right, tracing the origin. Okay, number two.
Is this my belief, truly mine, or is it one that was programmed into me?
Distinguishing between chosen and inherited. And the third.
From this moment forward, based on everything I know now, what do I choose to believe?
The conscious choice. That's key.
Yeah, and they gave some good examples to illustrate this.
Like the one about respect?
Exactly. If your belief is always treat every person with respect, you might trace it back to, say, watching your parents or grandparents consistently model that behavior. You saw it work. You saw the positive impact.
Okay.
So when you ask the third question, you consciously decide, yes, this aligns with my values. I witness it working. I choose to keep this belief.
Got it. But then there was the other example, the money one.
Right, the belief that money is the root of all evil.
A common one.
So you might identify that you learned that maybe from a parent who struggled financially and had negative experiences associated with money. That's where you learned it. It got programmed in. But then you get to question 3. What do I choose to believe now? And you might realize, wait a minute, money itself isn't inherently evil. It's just a tool.
Right. It can be used for bad things, sure.
But it can also be used for incredible good, like that example they used of someone donating millions to feed hungry people. So you can choose to let go of that programmed belief because it doesn't align with the kind of positive impact you believe is possible or the life you want to build.
So this whole process, identifying, questioning, choosing your beliefs, it's presented as one of the most profound ways to continue learning yourself, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and to see yourself and the world through a much clearer, less distorted lens.
So the overarching goal then, wrapping this up across all these practices, journaling, meditating, paying attention, challenging beliefs,
Yeah.
the sources consistently emphasize that the goal is curious, learning, and understanding. It's not about descending into guilt or shame about what you find.
That distinction is crucial, isn't it?
Absolutely. Self-awareness, when it's practiced with curiosity, is about learning who you are right now with a genuine desire for growth.
Right. Keeping the parts you like and that serve you well.
And consciously choosing to let go of what doesn't, what holds you back.
It's only when that awareness turns sour, when it curdles into self-judgment and shame.
That's when you veered off into excessive self-consciousness. And that's definitely not the intended path for positive change or growth.
No.
The focus is always on understanding yourself in the present moment, right now, and using that understanding as the fuel, the foundation, to consciously shape who you want to be moving into the future.
So we've taken this deep dive, popped the hood, looked inside, exploring self-awareness through these really powerful tools like journaling, meditation, paying attention to our thoughts and feelings, and actively challenging those core beliefs that shape us. And it seems really clear from the material this isn't like a one-time destination you arrive at. Okay, I'm self-aware now.
No, definitely not. It's presented as an ongoing journey of discovery, a continuous process.
Yeah, like constantly peeling back layers, always finding something new, and hopefully fascinating to learn about the person you are.
Exactly. Always more to explore.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. If challenging our programmed beliefs about the world can open up such new possibilities for how we see everything around us, what profound discoveries might we make about who we are if we start applying those same searching questions, that same curiosity, to the programmed ideas we hold, often unconsciously, about ourselves?
That's a powerful question to sit with.
Something to consider as you continue your own deep dive inward.